As you can see, the Citroen is looking a little bit different from last video. After the last video, what I did was I kind of carried along playing with the motor a little bit, seeing if I could, with the idea of maybe getting it started up. But I was playing around the starter motor and I couldn't get the starter motor to work, so I thought maybe the starter motor was not working. So I took it off and I thought it needed new brushes in it, so I put new brushes in it and put it back on and it wasn't working. And then I took it back off and tested it on the ground and my starter motor was working fine. So obviously something was stopping the motor from turning over. So I tried manually turning over by putting like a spanner on the cam pulley, and I couldn't get it to move, and I tried giving it, like pushing it and tying it, and there's even a sprocket on front of the gearbox for where you can put a crank handle, and I tried turning it on there and I couldn't get it moving. These things I probably should have tried before the starter motor, but that's how it worked. I thought it would be a good time for a bit of an update. I didn't film any of taking the engine out. It was just, I didn't quite know what I was doing and it took a bloody long time. The Citroen book actually quotes saying it's a 29-hour job, and I say it probably wasn't too far off from that. Part of the reason it didn't really worry me taking the engine out is because when I took the tappet cover off, it actually, it's completely different now, but this cylinder head was just caked in dirty oil that had been baked on. I don't think it was serviced regularly, but I managed to get it reasonably clean now. It's been sitting for a while, so it's getting a little bit dirty, but you can kind of see in these corners here the remains of the dirty oil, but it was probably about 5 mils thick of just encrusted oil in some parts. It was pretty bad. I don't think I took many photos of it, but if I do, I'll put them in the video. And even the water galleries were really corroded and stuff, but I've been taking a bit of time and starting to get everything cleaned up to go back together. Nothing looks too bad in terms of the cylinder head. There is quite a bit of wear in the rocket shaft. I think maybe at some stages it might have starved from oil. Based on how dirty it was, I don't think it had been serviced too often. Part of the reason that it took so long getting the engine out is because since you have the gearbox and the brakes in here, it means, unlike other Citroen where you can just pull the motor out and that's it, this you have to pull the gearbox out, you have to pull the drive shafts out, disconnect handbrake cables, this steering rack even had to come out, but I put it back in for now just so I can move it around a little bit easier. And a lot of stuff had to come out. I did take more than what I probably had to, but it was just because I'm going to paint up in here anyway. But it's not a job I want to do too often. So yesterday I had a big degreasing day. This engine and gearbox are pretty filthy. You can kind of see in here, it's pretty good now, but there's a lot of oil that's baked onto places. It took quite a bit of cleaning to get off, but it's come up quite nice now. I think it's going to need a good clean, and then I'll put it up on the table and take the sump off and check the big end bearings and stuff and see if there's anything majorly wrong with it. In terms of the bores look pretty good. They're a little bit dirty now from cleaning yesterday, and everything's moving fine, so I'm not too keen on taking the pistons out because then I'll move the liners and I'll need to get new liner gaskets and stuff. Although I probably have to get a new engine gasket set anyway, it's just another job I don't want to touch because they're in there, they're probably pretty good. You'll see what I've done here is I've put 2 bolts and washers on here just to keep these cylinder liners in place, because otherwise they could lift up when we were turning the engine over. So I mentioned earlier, there's actually a crank handle for these cars. So this is the way that the gearbox faces in the car, with the back of the gearbox towards the front. And you'll see in here, there's a little shaft in here with a groove cut in there. 14mm Allen key fits in there pretty well actually. And that goes right through the gearbox, and you can start the engine with it. So it has this shaft here that runs through here. I think it goes the other way around maybe. Oh no, that's about right. And that's what runs through here into the motor, so you can start it through the gearbox while it's in neutral. It also means you don't need to buy a clutch lining tool as well, because you can just remove this when you're putting the clutch back in. Another bit of the funny design in it is this is the camshaft here, sticking probably what, 300mm out of a block. That's because the way the engine is, it actually comes through the gearbox here, and this is where the cam pulley goes, and this is what runs the fan and the hydraulic pump and the alternator. But even the fan belts, they run through the clutch lever arm, which I find quite interesting, because if you had to change your fan belts, which I will have to change these, you gotta take all your clutch bits off as well. Seems a bit of excessive work, but it's obviously trying to fit everything in place. And I think this blanked off hole is maybe where, when they put this engine in other vehicles, is where the distributor normally would have been. Or actually no, it's probably more like here, but they couldn't put it in here because of the way the engine's laid out. So while it's all apart, I've been taking the opportunity to make a start on the paintwork. You see I've got the bonnet sitting up here, which I'm going to leave for a while because it's nearly as tall as me. With the other guards, I've got them sandblasted. But I'm not going to get the sandblasted just because it's aluminium, and you could get a little bits of steel from the sandblasting embedded in it and make it cause rust spots in it. I think I'll just sand this down with a DA sander. It should do a right job. But I've actually got the other panels sandblasted. I haven't done the doors yet. I'm going to leave the doors a little bit later on. Although I have mucked around and put a little bit of rust treater on these ones and just sprayed a bit of primer. I was just trying things out really here. So I've had the rear guards sandblasted and the front guards. This one here I've actually primed. It primed up quite nicely. But the problem is this one has a few dents in it. Please ignore the big oil streak down it. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to paint this one up, or if I'm going to get a replacement guard, or maybe try to get it panel beaded. I'm thinking it might be easier to get a replacement guard for it. It's kind of hard to show on this light, but I'll try to get some more shots of it outside. But it's quite wrinkled, and I think it'll be a bit of a pain to panel beat. These front guards have both been sandblasted, and this one here has been primed. It's come up pretty nice. There's all these black dots on them though. I think this is where the surface rust had been. So what I've been doing is been putting some rust treat on them before I've been priming them. This guard here has got a bit of body filler in it, but I'm not going to touch it too much because it's a bit of a difficult area to get the shape right. So what I'll do is I'll prime it, and then I'll see how it's looking, and I can add a bit more if it's needed. This one here I've already primed, and I've started to fill in all the little pits left behind by the rust marks. It's coming up quite nice. This is the same I did for the other guard, which works pretty well. I do have a little bit of a rust hole in here, which needs a little bit of work, and there's a few holes in here that came up after sandblasting, which will need a little bit of filler and maybe a bit of backing plate for the bigger ones. One problem with painting these at home though is getting right in the corners. See this one here, I'll need to give another coat when I do the other guard again. I've already brought the paint for it, and I got a bit carried away, and I've actually painted this guard up already, and it came up quite nice I thought. There's a little bit of a run down here. I just painted it in the backyard. A few funny spots in here, but overall I thought it came up pretty nice. It's a lot better than the old rusty. I think this is matched to the colour code. I think this looks so different because this has been faded for so long. I'm going to take this inner wheel cover off now. The torsion linkages are in behind here, and the other side was pretty greasy, so I'm going to take this side off as well. And it's going to need to paint up, and everything needs to tidy up anyway, so it's got to come off.
This thing those guards out are really a bit waxy, isn't it?
So I've given it all a water blast now, and I gave it a bit of a scrub, and I gave it another water blast. It's come reasonably clean. It's going to need another going over, but I'm going to strip more of it out when I paint it anyway. So once I've stripped more things out, I can give it another coat, another water blast I mean. So yeah, so that's about it for today. I'm going to get this car back in the shed, and I want to move things around a little bit and get the motors and gearbox down the back so I can work on them and put the car towards the front of the shed. So I'll start sorting all that out, and thanks for watching.
Start going down blocks a bit. Is that suspension right down?